Life in a foreign country. Exciting? You'd better believe it. Challenging? Yep, without a doubt. Fun? Most of the time. And some of that fun revolves around discovering that the way I'd always done things wasn't the only way possible. And maybe not even the best way. I want to share some things that I found very unusual here in Indonesia, my adopted home since December 1982, when I came here for a 3-month job. Have you ever gone to a foreign country and found some traditions or attitudes that seemed strange to you? Things that stood out as being very different from what you were used to? Maybe if you were just vacationing, you might not notice anything unusual because vacation spots often adapted everything in order to make visitors feel more comfortable. But if you were to go more into the local neighborhoods, you might run into the kind of things I'm going to talk about in today's video. Hi, I'm Kate, and this is my YouTube channel, KateGypsy. I hope you watch to the end, but if you get bored listening to me, I really understand. Maybe you'd be kind enough, though, to give me a thumbs up and subscribe now before you leave. Those 2 actions are really important for me in my quest to join the YouTube Partner Program. And now back to some things that seemed very odd to me during my first years here. I knew nothing about Indonesia when I came here. And you may not know much about Indonesia either, other than what you saw in the news about maybe the Bali bombing in 2002, or the tsunami in 2004, or perhaps the big eruption in 2010. Mount Merapi, one of the most active volcanoes in Indonesia. And I live on the slope of that volcano. Or you might know that most Indonesians are Muslim. If you're not Muslim, and I'm not either, by the way, you might immediately have some preconceived notions about the country. But you might be really off target about that. Just like Indonesians often get unrealistic ideas of Americans from movies and TV shows, I think the reverse is also true, and that Americans and other Westerners sometimes get unrealistic views of Indonesia just from the news or TV shows. For example, I often see Indonesia portrayed in Western TV shows as a place that houses terrorists or other kinds of criminals. So I decided that I wanted to relate what my experience in Indonesia has been. If you watched my video called 40 Years Living in Indonesia, you heard my story about the very positive experience I had when I was rather lost in Jakarta, a city of around 10 million. But then I was rescued by some very, very friendly Indonesian people. So yes, my experiences here have been mostly very positive. Why else would I have stayed for 40 years? Indonesia has become my home, and I've long felt that one of the things I should do for the benefit of living here is to share my impressions with everyone of what Indonesia is like. Just please keep in mind that I'm not a journalist trying to get to the facts. I just want to share my own experiences in order to give you an idea of what it's like for me as an American expat here in Indonesia. I'm sure other expats might have had experiences that were very different from mine, but I can only tell you what I've observed or experienced. I'll always be completely honest about everything, but I may change names and details so that I don't offend anyone. First, let me talk a little bit about Indonesian women versus American women. You know, Indonesian women, at least the Indonesian women here on the island of Java, are very different from American women. I first noticed that Indonesian wives often don't correct their husbands. For example, I remember riding in a taxi with a couple, Western husband, Indonesian wife. The Western husband was talking in Indonesia to the driver. And I could see just how very confused the driver was. The husband's pronunciation was excellent, but he had put some words in the wrong order in a way that gave the wrong idea. The wife said nothing. She just let her husband continue on with no correction. Another situation comes to my mind. Another mixed couple of an Indonesian wife and a Western husband. The wife asked the husband's opinion about some curtain material, and the husband told her exactly which material he preferred. The wife listened and then did exactly what she wanted. She didn't agree with her husband's choice and got the curtains made in the material that she liked. One time I mentioned this to the husband. I said that I'd frequently seen Indonesian women doing this very thing, asking for the husband's opinion and then ignoring it and doing whatever she wanted. He said, yeah, his wife did that all the time. Asked his opinion, but then did what she wanted. His complaint was that she was always right in her choice. I felt that I could learn a lot from watching these encounters because I was the type of person who could never keep her mouth shut. Not only couldn't I keep my mouth shut, but I always wanted my choice to be the one that survived. This situation actually came up a few weeks ago when I messaged my ex-Indonesian husband to ask if he'd watched my first video. And I asked him what he thought about it. He said, well, it was okay, but I should be talking about another topic. A topic that I didn't want to include. My normal American reaction would have been to argue that it was my video channel and I'd include whatever topic I wanted. But a female Indonesian friend said, just ignore what he said. It wasn't worth arguing over. Yeah, I could certainly learn a lot, and I'm working on it, so I just left it alone. Now, here's another thing that struck me odd. When I first arrived here, my colleagues and I would go to a local restaurant for lunch. I'd order what I wanted to eat first, and then the waiter would ask what I wanted to drink. I'd always answer, Coca-Cola. Normal, right? But the waiter would always ask me, well, how many? How many Coca-Colas? So I soon learned that I had to say one Coca-Cola right off the bat. Okay, I'm just getting started. The more I tell you, the more I remember things that struck me as odd. How about smiling with no teeth showing? And before I told you about that, I had to go and take a look at a few of the U.S. passports I've had over the years and a couple of my Illinois driver's licenses. I had to be sure that I wasn't remembering wrong. And no, the photos in those government documents all show me smiling, and horrors, my teeth were showing. That is absolutely not allowed on government documents here. When I got my Indonesian driver's license a few weeks ago and had to have my photo taken, I knew about that regulation that you're not allowed to show your teeth. So I wasn't smiling. because it's not easy for me to smile without showing my teeth. But the clerk, well, he wouldn't take my photo until I smiled. So I thought maybe this restriction was no longer valid. He told me to smile, so I smiled and my teeth showed. And he said, "No, no teeth, no teeth, no teeth." And he showed me how to smile with his mouth closed, not showing his teeth. Unfortunately, my photo on my driver's license looks like I'm being forced at gunpoint to smile. But just a quick aside about the government office where I got my driver's license. Like everywhere I go in Indonesia, the workers are so friendly and making jokes with me. A much nicer experience than what I've had at the driver's license place in Illinois. Regarding the friendliness of Indonesians, it always amazed me when my ex-husband and I took the bus in Jakarta, and within seconds, he and anyone nearby ended up chatting with each other as if they'd known each other forever. And then, what about those street sellers? Are you an American who is old enough to remember the old-time street vendors in the 1950s who would wander the streets with a pushcart and grinding wheel to sharpen your knives? Or the old men calling out rags and iron? I remember them from when I was young in Chicago, back in the 1950s. I don't know if the same thing happened in other cities, but I think Chicago banned them in the 1960s. But in Jakarta, in the 1980s, we had street vendors. In fact, once you had your major appliances, you'd never have to leave the house if you didn't want to, because of all the sellers who made their way up and down the streets, each one making a particular noise so you would recognize what kind of food or household product they were selling. I always got my morning breakfast from the guy who was selling bubur ayam. That's rice porridge with all kinds of goodies mixed in. I'm not sure if Jakarta still has street vendors. If you know, please leave me a comment, let me know, and tell me what you buy from them. And what about street sellers in Yogyakarta, where I live now? We still have some street vendors, but not too many and not much variety. Early in the morning, around 6 a.m., a car drives down my road and blares its horn over and over and over to announce that the seller would have vegetables at the corner for a short time. Come and get him while he's there. Then around midday, I can hear the ding, ding, ding of the seller who sells a kind of soup that's called bakso here. And did you know that Indonesians love to have their photos taken? For travelers who often find it difficult to take photos of local people in the countries they visit, Indonesia is pure joy. That's because Indonesians love to have their photos taken. If Indonesians see you taking photos of a building or a person, they will often run up to you and say, "Photo, photo, photo." They want to have their photo taken as well. And they will thank you for it afterward, even though they know they'll never see it. Well, those are just some of the things that surprised me about Indonesia. Other expats probably have very different impressions from mine. Maybe theirs were more interesting than mine, but did they end up staying for more than 40 years? Maybe a few did. In any case, I'm happy and love sharing my expat life with you. Well, thanks for watching, and please remember to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Bye for now. Till next time.